Rev up your engines!
You know, they tell us this myth that we're going to be more charges for electric cars. Go out buy electric cars. That's all going to be fixed. Well, the exact opposite is happening. ChargePoint is cutting 15% of its workforce because they're losing money. Now, you may not know it, but ChargePoint Holdings Incorporated is operating the largest electric vehicle charging network in the United States. And they're cutting 15% of their workforce. You know, they lie to us. Don't worry, get an electric car. We're going to have ChargePoint everywhere. Well, these guys are cutting it because they're losing money. You know why they're losing money? Because, again, we have electric cars are not economically viable for anyone. If this was viable, people would be going hands over fist, building charging stations to make money. People don't use them that much. They cost money to build. They are not very profitable. To begin with, like in California, 90% of the people charge their electric cars at home, so only 10% is done on the road. Would you start a business where you're only getting 10% of the charging business because it's only when people are traveling cross country, the rest of the time they do them? Of course you wouldn't. It's not economically viable. And these companies like ChargePoint are finding it out real fast. They got to cut 15% of their workforce because they're not making any money. So they got to cut all their costs. It's already falling apart before it's even been accepted by people. Not that many people buy electric cars. And as far as I'd say, it's a good thing they haven't because they're going to be stuck with no charging infrastructure. And why would somebody build a charging infrastructure when it's not profitable? Now the government says we're going to build them. Oh yeah, they did that $3.5 billion deal, whatever it was, right? So far they built 7 stations with $3.5 billion in 3 years. Yeah, the government does a great job building stuff, right? Red tape bureaucrats, they're going to solve our problems. Of course they're not going to solve our problems. And a private company like this, they're cutting things out so they don't have to go out of business because they're not economically viable to build the charging stations. They're not going to make a profit. Would you run a business where you know you're not going to make a profit? Only a fool would do that. Well, a Tesla fanboy who bought a Tesla Cybertruck now says that he thinks he's being shadow banned by X because he complained about his broken Cybertruck online. Now, first he loved it and they didn't stop him. You know, oh, I love my Cybertruck, la, la, la. But the guy started complaining after they kept breaking. Now, once he got the vehicle, he had problems. And he eventually worked his way through 2 defective Cybertrucks until he got one that worked. Okay, that shows you what pile of crap they are. These are brand new. The one they gave him didn't work right either. But then he started complaining, and he claims he's shadow banned on X, of course. Elon Musk owns X, and he claims he's shadow banned. Now, if you don't know what shadow banning is, they can do it for any length of time from forever to a day or an hour or a week, a month, whatever they want to do. And so he's complaining now that when he said good things, that was okay, but now he's saying bad things, and he says he's being shadow banned. Well, hey, what do you expect? You know, old Elon owns Tesla, and he owns X. You start complaining about this stuff. It doesn't surprise you at all. Well, it just shows you how not open to competition the whole scenario is. The fact that the guy bought one, said he loved it, but then it broke. They gave him another one. That one broke. Kind of tells you they're piles of crap. Get rid of it, buddy. Don't get another one. Maybe sue them under the lemon law. Get your money back and never buy another Cybertruck, right? But kind of evil that old Elon was talking about. Free speech. And they're shadow banning the guy because he's complaining. You know, that Cybertruck, gee, I'm on my 3rd one. It's still kind of crappy. Well, a lot of people say they don't make them like they used to. Well, this guy bought a Honda Civic Type R 2024. And he's complaining that it's broken already and the wheel's falling off. It's brand new, 2024 Civic Type R. They're pretty well made from my experience. Now, is it that Honda is making those things crappier? Well, let me tell you something. I've seen that over and over, being a mechanic for the last 56 years. Some people just abuse cars. Now, if you got a car like that, you're driving like a maniac, it doesn't take diddly squat for you to hop a curb. It's a low to the ground car, low profile tires, you hop a curb, yeah, you're going to pop the suspension, right? You're going to break a ball joint. I see that all the time. When I was in Houston, over all those years, I had people bring me cars that were broken, and I'd say, what happened? Oh, well, I don't know. I got it that way. And then I asked the guy's wife, you know, do you know what happened to the car? She says, yeah, he smacked into the curb when he was drinking, and that's what smashed it in. And then I got an idea, okay, so it hit a curb. That means the bottom got hit in, so probably the control arm is bent. And I'd look, and sure enough, the control arm on one side is straight, and on the side that he hit, it was bent. Now, I don't know what happened with this particular guy, but it seems to me like like that's probably what happened. He's trying to complain to Honda, oh, it's a new car and it's broken. You can break anything. When I was a kid, Harley Davidsons came with a 30-day warranty. They knew the guys who bought them were driving them around like absolute lunatics. So in this case, I'm not really blaming Honda. I bet you it was the guy driving the thing that hit something and then it broke off. Yeah, you hit things, bad things happen. You can't blame the car manufacturer on that one. I've been in quite a few Civic Type R's. They're all really solid made, put together well. I don't think this thing just fell off on its own. I'll bet you whacked into something. And he's just not admitting, now he's whining about it on social media. Oh, look, where my Honda broke. Yeah, well, you run into a wall, it'll break. They're now starting to build the world's first megawatt scale ocean wave project. They're doing it in Portugal. Now, they just broke ground. It's not built yet. It's going to take them a while to build it. And it's going to use waves and tides to generate electricity. It produces 1 megawatt of power. Okay, they talk about megawatts. This is only 1 megawatt. Now, that's enough electricity for a whopping 1,000 homes. There's no saying how much money it costs to build the thing. It hasn't been built yet. Let's not hold our breaths waiting for waves to give us power. It's a company called Eco Wave Power. They're going to begin initial construction in the next 2 years. So imagine how long it's going to be before they actually get it out there. And it is using wave technology. Now, yeah, it's a good idea. As you can see, they don't create all that much power. 1 megawatt for 1,000 homes. How many of these things would you have to build, right? And of course, this particular one's in Portugal. So what's that? Salt water. Who's to say how long these things are going to last before the salt water corrodes them? Then you got to replace them. Spend all the money doing that. There's a reason that we're not using these things in the first place. They don't create that much electricity. Back in the day, what did they have? They had water mills. They had big water wheels, and the water mills ground the corn and stuff. Why don't they use them anymore? Because they don't create all that much power. They take up a lot of space. I saw one of the original water mills in the United States in a museum in Massachusetts. This thing was gigantic. It was like, it's like 30 feet wide. Big, giant water wheel that powered this old factory that did textiles, right, from the 1700s. That thing produced like 14 horsepower. My riding lawnmower has more horsepower. So it shows you there's not that much energy that's in these things. And it's interesting, yeah, you can create power, but I mean, if they got to spend all this money building a giant thing, it's going to take them years and years. They can power a whopping 1,000 homes. Who knows for how long before the salt water eats it out. We got to work at better things than this. For small areas, maybe it's a good idea, you know, but for massive production of energy, hey, to me, it just doesn't make enough power. Well, on the U.S. offshore wind power scene, now there's a big problem. Now they say there's no workable turbine because the massive project was going to use these 18 megawatt turbines. We're not going to make them anymore. Yeah, because they're not making money on the things. They're having problems with them, right? Now the developer that was doing this offshore wind, Invenergy, says we want to pause our 2.4 gigawatt project. Max the plans for their generators, and Siemens Gamesa jacked their prices up for big ones too. And now they're not going to be able to make money. See, the problem is these things are not economically viable. They cost too much money to build. They don't create all that much electricity to get that kind of power. 2.4 gigawatts, you got to put a bunch of these things up there. Problems with them breaking, right? That's well, we're not going to make those. Because it's not profitable for them either. And then the only game in town that makes them that big, Siemens Gamesa, jack their prices sky high because they're like, hey, we're the only boys in town. We can charge whatever we want for these things now. And of course, the original program for the offshore farms that they're building on the East Coast based on price and what it's going to cost. And now the other companies that make the only one left are charging more money. Hey, it just shows that the stuff's not ready for prime time. And now, well, they're asking, we have to push it into the future now because, see, they all signed contracts, right? You got to build it by then, yada, yada, yada. Now they're saying, well, we can't because it's not economically viable. And of course, if the government people don't agree with them, the company can obviously go bankrupt if they want and say, okay, we're bankrupt. Bye. There go the contracts down the toilet. We're bankrupt. We don't exist anymore. So goodbye. So ultimately, Johnny, the government agencies will agree to change the contract or whatever, or renege or get some small fine that may never even get paid to say, okay, yeah, we got to change things because you can't build them. You can't build them because they're not economically viable. So why even try in the first place? Well, if you look at the size of those new giant ships, those massive cruise ships are gigantic. Some of them are like 4 times the size of the Titanic. Well, you wonder, how do they get under bridges? Some bridges are pretty tall, but some of the older ones in Europe are a lot shorter. Well, the gigantic ones now, a lot of them have retractable funnels for their smokestacks. You know, they're all diesels, so they're throwing diesel fumes out, that they can come down a bunch of feet. And of course, also, if you didn't know, they have giant ballast tanks. Well, they got to have giant ballast tanks to keep them balanced, right? So they don't tip over. These things are so tall, you'd think they tip over, right? So they'll fill the giant ballast tanks with water, and the ship will sink. So they're able to get under those bridges, and sometimes only by a few feet. These things are so gigantic. So now you know how they can duck under those bridges and not whack into them. They're making those things taller and taller. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.